What is good, Tsla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I want to break down what's going on with the overall market, what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, and the QQQ and many tickers out there, and talk about what's happening with all this news that's coming out and what you should be watching for when it comes to levels for these different stocks. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. Now, friends, today in just about 20 hours, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Looking at Tesla's thing is down about 1.9% in the pre-market, once again looking relatively weak. And the question is, how will Tesla move going forward? What are some important levels to watch for? And also, what's going on with the markets? Well, some news has come out that things are not looking that strong, at least for guidance for many different companies out there. And we had Kashkari from the Fed speaking yesterday about the bank concerns. He mentioned the fact that the Fed has a lot more work to be done, and he talked about how the banking situation right now is not necessarily in a horrible state. He didn't describe it in that manner, but he said that there's a little more work to be done by the Fed, and there could be some pain coming as a result of that. But he did mention that moving forward, he is still very optimistic at the same time. So he was trying to calm a lot of investors down, as he tends to do. When it comes to Target, however, they just announced their earnings. They actually beat on most earnings out there, which is why the share price is up, at least as of right now. But they ended up cutting their full year guidance, showing some weakness as once again, things are not going to be that strong for the next year for them, in their opinions, because of what's happening with the overall state of the economy. To add on to this, we're going to be looking at very other important concerns. We're starting to see more talk about Fitch potentially downgrading some more banks out there from Wells Fargo to JP Morgan Chase. And on top of this, there's been more news about China, once again looking weaker as we saw their central banks cut rates even sooner than expected. So this is still making some headlines. Very important to note. We do have Target once again slashing the full year forecast as a result of what's happening right now. And then on top of all of this, we have some big market movers like Coinbase making a big move after some changes to regulatory parties. We have Tesla right now, which is down another 2% after some news came out yesterday about the Model S and X price cuts in China. And then on top of this, we have Target making a nice move, which is up quite decently for their beat on earnings. But once again, guidance is still not very strong for them. So we could see a big change later on for the company. Besides that, there's nothing else that's too crazy going on. For earnings, I'm going to be watching Walmart's tomorrow. That's going to be a big one that I'm going to be keeping on my eyes. Guidance is going to be very important. We're going to see what they end up announcing, and I'm going to be watching this very, very carefully, especially from the technicals. I may talk a little bit more about that later on. Anyways, when it comes to what's happening with the data coming out for today, we have some housing data coming out, not to mention the industrials and the overall construction numbers. That's all going to be coming out a little bit later on, but there's nothing too crazy so far for the markets, at least in the morning. Going into the afternoon at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, we have the FOMC minutes coming out. This is going to cause a much bigger move, so make sure you're prepared for that. And the market could move either way depending on what on earth the Fed is implying here. Now, as far as Tesla goes, we actually broke below the original falling wedge I had drawn out on the charts. And if anything, it is continuing to look weaker. Now we have another trend line, the blue one right here, which I redrew. This is going to be another support for Tesla, but the problem is, unfortunately, Tesla's still looking weaker. It's been continuing to drop. We're going to be watching 227 to 225, this entire support zone right here. That's going to be helping to hold Tesla up. But if it breaks below this area, we do have more downside potentially coming. If we break below 225, I could see this thing come all the way down, get closer to about 221. That's going to be another possibility. There's 222.5 and 221. And if that breaks us, if it gets below 220, you're going to be watching 217.5 or so. Those are some very important levels. Now, for resistance, you're going to be watching 230 as resistance. If that broke, we're going to be watching 232.5 and potentially 235 above that as resistance levels. But I don't really see Tesla making its way all the way up there. It still looks relatively weak. We're going to be watching this imbalance right here around this like 229 area. So it could try to rebound just a teeny tiny bit, try to make its way up a little bit. But for the time being, I do see lots of range-bound price action for Tesla. I don't think it's going to be that crazy for today until we get the FOMC minutes. So that's what I'm basically seeing. It was looking very weak in the pre-market, continuing to weaken. Look for a retest of this 229 to 230 area. That is a possibility before it gets another rejection. It's currently at 228, so a little bit of a rejection up to 20 EMA could come. Then sideways price action for the time being. If the market sinks more, we could see Tesla like reject from here and just start like coming right back down. And then I wouldn't rule out the possibility of it retesting 227 to 225 and then becoming range bound, going back and forth between support and resistance before we get a much bigger move during the FOMC minutes. So watch for these tests right now for Tesla. It still is looking relatively weak, like I was saying earlier. It's still not looking that great. So we're going to be watching it very carefully. As far as SPY goes, we have some other very important levels on it. SPY is currently sitting at about 442. That's the support for it. If that breaks, you're going to be watching 441.3 around that area, the very mid 441s. Then we have 440 and then 438 as support. If those all end up, did I say 448? I meant 438 as support. If it ends up bouncing from here, then we have like 435.35 as resistance. And then we also have 444. We're going to be watching these very carefully to see which way it ends up breaking. For now, it's looking relatively weak, so watch 442. That's going to be tested right now. We're currently sitting at 442.1, still looking relatively weak. We're going to be watching to see how it responds to that. And to add on to all of this, we have a couple of other important things. Looking at the QQQ, this is also looking not necessarily that great. We actually have this distributive head and shoulders structure that developed on it. It looks like it's going to be testing 364.69 very, very soon, getting very close to the 364s. We're currently at 365 right now. So I could see it dropping a little bit more before this thing makes an attempt to bounce or at least get a small rebound to range trade for a bit until we approach the FOMC minutes. So watch for that test on the triple Q. Looking at Nvda, this thing is holding up quite nicely in the pre-market. You can see it's up about 0.78%. But it's getting very tight right now, right? It's getting very, very tight. You could see it's trying to hold above the 50 EMA. If it's bullish and gets a breakout, I mean, it is still possible for it to make its way up to about 450 plus. But as the market sinks, we could see it actually break and retest the 50 EMA at 440. If that breaks, watch 436 or so. In my opinion, it's getting very tight, so we'll see which way it breaks. I do think we have to be open-minded to anything on a stock like this, which is very resilient. So just wait and see how it goes. But for now, just know that it's getting very tight, and we have to watch which way it breaks. All right. Now, finally, that's pretty much it for the video. I want to make this one kind of short because I am running behind schedule again. I had some issues again, which led this video to being kind of delayed. But anyways, I wanted to just thank you all so much for listening. Have a very, very awesome day. And don't forget, we have the FOMC minutes once again at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Expect some volatility because of it for Nvda, Tesla, SPY, and all these different stocks. Get ready and do what you have to do. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Tesla in the market to the moon as the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.